The galaxy had always measured strength in armor, talons, venom, speed. Every species that rose from the oceans and jungles of their birth worlds brought something sharp, something brutal, something efficient enough to survive the crucible of evolution. And then there were the humans, soft-skinned bipeds, hairless in awkward places, laughably fragile bones. Their teeth were dull, their claws non-existent, their hides tore open on a thorn bush. No venom, no natural armor, no wings, no camouflage. They were, by every galactic metric, prey animals that had stumbled into the stars. Among the Kragth, this fact was a favorite joke. "They bruise if you breathe on them," one soldier hissed to another as the human contingent was marched into the testing grounds. "Perhaps they'll shatter in the wind." Their laughter was wet and buzzing, mandibles clicking together. Rows of armored bodies loomed above the newcomers, their chitin gleaming with oils, their multifaceted eyes glittering in the harsh light of the sun. They were apex predators, each born into a hierarchy of strength, each raised on hunts that culled the weak. The humans stood in their shadow, breathing heavy already. Their lungs rasped in the dry heat, their lips cracked, a few squinted against the light and wiped sweat from their foreheads. Sweat, the Kragth commander thought with open disgust, wasting fluids to cool their skin, dripping weakness onto the soil. He raised his voice, loud enough for the humans to hear, though he spoke in his own tongue. "Today you will learn the shape of futility. Today you will run and you will fall.
And you will not rise again. The galaxy will see that your kind was never meant for the void," the aliens jeered. The humans said nothing. That silence was taken for fear. The trial began with a gunshot. Dust billowed. The humans moved. They did
Not move well. Their strides were uneven, clumsy. Their bodies bent and swayed, as if their skeletons were badly fitted cages. The Kragth loped alongside, their gait smooth, perfected over millions of years. Their limbs were 4, 6, sometimes 8, each tipped in razors meant to tear and grip. Beside them, the humans looked like children staggering through a storm. Hours passed. The sun baked the ground into a skillet of stone and grit. Human skin burned red, peeled, cracked. Blisters swelled on their feet. Their breathing came ragged and loud, chests heaving like broken bellows. The Kragth laughed from the ridges, mocking every stumble. One soldier leaned down to his comrade. "How long before they beg to stop? A cycle? Half?" "Less," the other clicked. "They are meat. Meat doesn't endure." But the humans didn't beg. They didn't cry out. They just kept moving, step after step, hour after hour, while the aliens lounged in shade and drank from canteens. The first human fell in the dust. The Kragth roared in triumph, mandibles clacking in celebration.
"There! Already broken! See how easily—" The human got back up, not quickly, not gracefully. He rose like something half dead, pushing on his knees, spitting dirt from his mouth. His face was pale, eyes bloodshot. He stood, swayed, and then kept walking. The laughter faltered. By the 5th hour, half the humans had collapsed at least once. None had stayed down. Every time they clawed their way upright, groaning, limping, dragging themselves forward.
Their clothes were soaked dark with sweat, then dried stiff with salt, then soaked again. The Kragth commander watched with a tightening in his thorax. It was not strength. Not in any way he understood the word. Strength was decisive. Strength was final. You struck, and the opponent ended. What these creatures did was something else. There was no sharpness in it, no killing blow. Only persistence. Still, he told himself, persistence breaks eventually. Flesh is finite, pain accumulates. Even the most stubborn animal must collapse under the weight of exhaustion. But the hours stretched. Shadows lengthened on the ground. The heat dropped, the air cooling, but the trial did not stop. The commander wanted to see the breaking point with his own eyes, wanted to hear the human cries of surrender. Yet the cries never came. The humans stumbled, cursed under their breath, hissed as blisters tore open and bled, but they did not say the words that would end it. They did not beg, they did not yield, they just kept moving. The alien soldiers jeered louder, desperate now, their mockery frantic.
"Pathetic meat! Limp faster or we'll drag you!" Their laughter was brittle. One human glanced up, face caked in dust, eyes rimmed red. He didn't speak, he just looked. The gaze was raw, hollow, and utterly unbroken. Then he lowered his
head and kept walking. The commander felt something in his chest that he refused to name. By the 12th hour, some Krak began drifting back to camp, bored of the spectacle. Others stayed, but their laughter had dried to silence. The only sound was the steady scuff of human feet on stone. The commander shifted uneasily. He glanced at his officers. Their antennae twitched with the same disquiet. "This is not endurance," one muttered. "This is madness." "No," the commander said, though the word tasted like ash. "This is something else." He looked
again at the humans. Their steps were clumsy but measured. Their pace was ragged but constant. They weren't racing. They weren't collapsing for good.
They were conserving something, holding it tight in the marrow of their fragile bones. For the first time, the commander wondered, not when they would break, but if. And when that thought settled into him, he realized his mandibles had stopped clicking. His soldiers had gone quiet. The only rhythm was the humans themselves, steady as a drumbeat, steady as time. One of the humans stumbled badly, nearly going down again. His knees shook. His lips moved soundlessly. The commander leaned forward, ready to watch the collapse. But the man caught himself, drew in a ragged breath, stood and walked on. The commander's throat rasped. "This is wrong," he thought. "This should not be happening. The trial was supposed to be demonstration, a lesson in futility, a reminder that humanity was nothing but fragile
meat." But as the day bled into night, as the stars burned cold overhead, and the humans still moved, the commander felt something cold coil around his gut. Not anger, not mockery, something closer to fear. And when the 24th hour began, the commander realized with horror that he was no longer certain who was testing whom. The humans are still moving after an entire day. The alien commander, for the first
time, feels fear that they might not stop at all. The galaxy had seen marathons before, tests of endurance, contests of stamina, but they always ended the same way: collapse, death, or surrender. No predator ran itself into oblivion. That was
madness.
That was prey behavior. And yet the humans had been running, walking, stumbling for a full day and a night. The Krak commander perched on a ridge, his armored carapace catching the faint light of twin moons. His mandibles twitched in irritation as he studied the line of humans below. They were shadows, trudging across the wasteland, hunched and uneven, but still moving. "This is excess," one of his lieutenants hissed. "No body can maintain motion." Past this cycle, it is biology." The commander said nothing. His eyes tracked a man whose feet dragged trenches in the dust. His gait was broken, limping, but his rhythm never ceased. Every few steps his head sagged forward, then jerked upright, as if some invisible hand kept him from falling. The commander's gut tightened. In his own species, weakness was shame. A broken limb meant abandonment. A fallen hunter was meat for the scavengers, but these humans, they refused to leave each other. When one stumbled, another caught him. When water ran low, they passed it between cracked lips, rationing in silence. They were not strong, they were not fast, but they were many, and they moved like a single will stitched together from broken flesh. The commander tried to sneer.
It is spectacle, nothing more, but the sneer came out thin. By the 30th hour, the aliens began mocking again, though their jeers lacked conviction. "You crawl like worms!" "Fall already, fragile things." The humans ignored them. That silence, that
damnable silence, grew heavier than any insult. No arguments, no boasting. Just the relentless shuffle of blistered feet on stone. The commander forced his soldiers back into formation, marching parallel to the humans. Dust billowed under alien claws as they loped easily alongside. Their movements were smooth, efficient, the product of evolution, designed for short bursts of lethal power. They laughed as they passed the humans, showing rows of serrated mandibles. "See?
This is how you move." The humans didn't look, didn't respond, didn't even adjust their pace. Hours later, one alien soldier dropped back into step with them, mockery on his tongue. He meant to shame them, to demonstrate superiority by matching
their plodding rhythm with casual ease. He clicked jokes at their expense, striding tall until, without warning, his legs buckled. His armored body crashed into the dirt with a heavy crack. The laughter of his comrades died in their throats. Medics dragged him away, sensors hissing warnings of muscular collapse and dehydration. The humans kept walking. By the 36th hour, unease settled like frost. The commander stared down at his own limbs, at the way his muscles trembled faintly from the effort of keeping pace. He had not expected to feel fatigue from a spectacle meant to humiliate prey. And still the humans moved. Their feet were bloody now, shoes shredded, some walking barefoot across the jagged stone. Skin hung in tatters, sweat dried white on their faces. They muttered curses, but never pleas. Not one asked to stop. The commander's mandibles clicked nervously. He tried to tell himself this was meaningless. Just noise, just animal persistence. But a whisper ran through his troops. "What if this is their strength?" one soldier murmured. "Strength," another hissed. "They are weak, fragile, slow." "Yes," came the reply. "And yet, they are still here." The words lodged in the commander's carapace like barbs. He barked orders. "Extend the trial, push them harder, make the ground break them if they will not break themselves." So the route shifted. Up jagged hills, down into ravines, through canyons where heat pooled like molten metal. The air shimmered, rocks tore at skin, the cracks climbed with ease, claws anchoring in stone. They looked down to see humans scrambling, slipping, catching one another by the wrists, always moving, always together. The commander's mandibles ground tight. By the 40th hour, alien soldiers began to lag. They were hunters designed for swift, decisive bursts, not this endless crawl. Their muscles burned with lactic acid, their gills fluttered, desperate for air. And still the humans. went on. It was wrong. It was unnatural. The commander's eyes fixed on one woman near the front. Her face was gaunt, lips split, salt streaking her cheeks. She carried nothing but her own broken body, and yet, when a man behind her stumbled, she slowed, let him lean, an arm on her shoulder, and pulled him onward. Predators did not do this. Predators abandoned the weak. Prey clustered perhaps, but always in fear. Yet the commander could not see fear in their eyes, only a grim determination that clawed at the edges of his mind. By the 50th hour, the aliens no longer mocked. Their silence mirrored the humans. One soldier muttered to the commander in private, They do not move like prey. They move like something else. Something I do not know, the commander hissed. Enough! They will break. Flesh cannot last forever. But he heard his own words echo back hollow. When dawn came again, painting the wasteland in pale fire, the humans were still walking. Not one had quit. Not one had begged. The commander's chest felt tight. What disturbed him most was not their survival, but their pace. Their movements had steadied, stumbling less, resting their weight differently. They were adapting, conserving, finding a rhythm that seemed inexhaustible. Predators did not do this. Predators sprinted. Prey sprinted, too, away from death. But these humans had found some third way, some middle path between collapse and victory. And for the first time, the commander wondered if the galaxy's weakest flesh might carry the most dangerous endurance. He turned to his second. Extend the trial again. Double the distance, the officer hesitated. Commander, our own are tiring. If we press further, the commander's mandibles clicked. Do it. His gaze drifted back to the humans. Dust rose around their bleeding
feet, their cracked lips, their hollow eyes.
And still they moved, step by step, as if nothing in the universe could make them stop. The commander realizes with horror that the humans aren't just surviving, they're pacing themselves. This isn't desperation, it's strategy. Predators
knew how to end a hunt. That was the law of nature. Strike fast, tear the throat, finish it before it drags on. Efficiency was survival.
Anything else was waste. The Krark lived by that creed. For 1,000,000 cycles they had stalked jungles of poison and stone, chasing prey through shadows until the kill was clean and the hunger sated. No predator stretched a hunt into hours. No predator squandered energy on a quarry too stubborn to collapse. And yet here they were, 48 hours into a demonstration that should have ended long ago, watching fragile bipeds still moving across a wasteland. The commander's soldiers
buzzed in agitation.
Their claws scraped against armor, mandibles tapping in nervous rhythm. They mock us, one hissed. The commander bristled. They do not mock. They merely do not understand when to surrender. But even as he said it, he knew the words were hollow. There was something deliberate in the way humans moved now. Something measured. They had steadied. Their stumbling had smoothed into a strange, ugly rhythm. Every step looked painful, but it was consistent, calculated. They were conserving, adjusting, evolving moment by moment. It was not prey behavior. The commander growled low in his throat. Send an officer, run with them, show them the difference between predator and prey. A veteran warrior clattered forward, his carapace scarred from countless hunts. He loped easily down the slope and matched pace with the humans, his mandibles wide in a grin. See how a true hunter runs, he clicked, voice dripping disdain. He darted ahead, his four limbs ablur, leaving the humans behind in a storm of dust. The Krath soldiers cheered. The humans did not react. They kept their pace, steady as the turning of a wheel. Minutes passed, then an hour. The officer's strides grew ragged, his gleaming carapace dulled with sweat. His breathing rasped. He slowed, his legs trembling. He looked back, expecting to see humans far behind, collapsing. But they were there, still walking, still moving, step, step, step. The officer tried to surge forward again, claws digging into stone, but his legs buckled beneath him. He crashed to the ground, gasping, limbs twitching. Silence fell across the ridge. The humans passed him without a word. One even glanced down as they limped past. No mockery, no triumph, just the hollow gaze of someone who simply hadn't stopped. The commander's mandibles tightened. His officer was dragged away, armor scraping against rock. Shame curdled in the air. "This is unnatural," muttered one of his lieutenants. "Prey cannot outlast predator." The commander bared his teeth. "Then we will prove it. Extend the trial again." And so the humans were driven further, across jagged ridges, through dry riverbeds where dust choked every breath. The sun rose and set and rose again. The Krath watched, waiting for collapse. It never came. The humans slowed. Yes, they swayed, yes. Some vomited bile, some bled from split souls, some staggered half-blind. But none of them stayed down. They caught each other, carried each other, shared the burden in silence. One fell, his body convulsing with exhaustion. Another human lifted him onto her shoulders, teeth gritted, and carried him forward. The commander's stomach turned. Predators abandoned the weak. These creatures refused to. By the 60th hour, alien soldiers themselves were faltering. They had not expected to march this long. Their muscles trembled with fatigue. Their gills burned in the dust-choked air. Yet the humans went on. The commander heard whispers among his ranks. They do not stop. They are not prey. They are something else. He snarled to silence them, but the words crawled into his own thoughts like burrowing worms. The humans' silence made it worse. No boasts, no taunts, no threats. Just the steady scrape of feet, a sound that grew unbearable in its constancy. It was a rhythm that did not belong to prey. It was the sound of something chasing you, whether you could admit it or not. The commander spat into the dust. "We double the course, push them until their bones splinter." But even as the words left him, he feared what would happen if they didn't. Hours later, he sat rigid on his perch, watching shadows stretch long across the wasteland. The humans were still there, outlines wavering in the heat. A strange thought
came to him, unbidden and poisonous. What if they never stop? He shoved it down, mandibles clattering in denial. Predators knew how to end a hunt. But what if these creatures weren't prey?
What if they were something worse, predators who did not stop? The commander turned sharply to his lieutenant. "Extend again. Let us see the limit of their madness." The lieutenant hesitated, antennae twitching with unease. "Commander."
"If we extend again, it is our limit we will test." The commander froze. His gaze drifted back to the humans, bloody, blistered, bent with exhaustion, still moving, always moving, and in the pit of his chest.
He felt it again, that wrong, primal dread. Because for the first time in his life, he wondered if he was the one being hunted. The commander orders the test extended again, but realizes the trial is no longer about breaking humans. It's about whether the aliens themselves can endure them. The Krath commander had always believed in breaking points. Everything had one, bone, metal, flesh, will. Push hard enough and anything snapped. That belief had carried him through wars, through hunts, through the rise of his own command.
No one endured forever. No one. But these humans. 70 hours into the trial, their bodies were wrecks of blood and dust. Their feet left red smears across stone. Their eyes were hollow, ringed with black. They leaned on each other like ruins,
Propping one another up, and still they walked. The commander's soldiers had stopped mocking hours ago. Their mandibles clicked nervously, their antennae drooping with unease. "They should be dead," one whispered. "Why aren't they dead?" the commander snapped. "Because they are stubborn animals, nothing more." But the words had no teeth. He watched a man stumble, collapse to his knees, face first, into dust. A groan tore from his throat, pain, raw and guttural. Another human bent, pulled him up by the arm, slung it over his shoulders. Together they limped onward. The commander felt a chill ripple through his carapace. Predators abandoned the weak. That was law. That was survival. But these humans, these fragile creatures, dragged each other forward as though surrender was worse than death. By the 75th hour, cracked soldiers themselves were faltering. Their gills strained for air. Their limbs trembled. Some collapsed and were carried off by medics, carapaces cracked from overexertion. The commander paced, mandibles grinding. This was not how it was supposed to go. The trial was meant to be. Humiliation, not a mirror held to their own endurance. He barked, "Push harder, increase the distance, raise the pace." And so the course wound into steeper hills, sharper rocks, brutal inclines that shredded feet and claw alike. The humans bled. They cursed under their breath. Some screamed when skin tore, when tendons snapped, but none quit. The commander's chest felt tight. At the 80th hour, one of his officers staggered beside him, antennae limp. "Commander, our own are collapsing. We were not built for this." The commander snapped his mandibles in rage. "We are predators. We endure what prey cannot." But the lie rang hollow. He could see the truth in the officer's shaking limbs, the truth in the trail of soldiers already carried off the field. He looked back down at the humans. They were wreckage on two legs, but their steps were steady. They bled and broke, but always moved, always together. The commander whispered without meaning to, "Why do they not stop?" A nearby soldier answered, voice low, terrified, "Perhaps they do not know how." The words sank like a stone in his chest. The sun fell. The wasteland turned to black glass under the cold stars. Still, the humans moved. Torches flickered among them, weak flames shielding them from darkness. The commander stared at those lights with something that felt like dread. They looked less like prey now and more like hunters carrying fire through the night. He told himself, he was imagining it, that the shadows stretched too long, that exhaustion warped perception. But when one of the humans lifted his head and glanced toward the ridge, the commander felt the weight of that gaze in his marrow. Hollow, bloodshot eyes that carried no fear, no surrender. Only one message: we are still here. By the 90th hour, even the commander's own legs threatened to buckle. His carapace was slick with condensation, his breath coming harsh and ragged. He forced himself upright, snarling, but he knew. He knew. The breaking point had come, but it wasn't the humans' breaking point, it was theirs. The realization slashed through him like a blade. This was no longer a trial of prey, it was a trial of predators, and they were failing. He tried to force the words out, to bark another order, but his throat rasped. The silence among his soldiers was suffocating. Every one of them knew the same truth. The humans had not broken, and the Kragth had. The commander's vision swam. He braced himself on the rocks, mandibles clicking weakly. His chest burned. His limbs trembled. Down below, the humans trudged past another ridge, torches swaying like stars dragged across the earth. Step by step, unstoppable. The commander's heart hammered against his ribs. He could no longer deny the truth, no matter how it poisoned his pride. The weakest flesh in the galaxy had not shattered. It was the hunters who were splintering. He rasped to no one, to the empty night. If they do not stop. What are they? The commander realizes the breaking point has come, not for the humans, but for his own soldiers. The wasteland had grown quiet. Too quiet. The Kragth were a species of noise, mandibles clacking, antennae rasping, voices buzzing in layered chords. A hunt was always alive with sound, jeers, roars, the clash of carapace on stone. Even failure was noisy, but now, as the trial dragged past 90 hours, the alien ranks had gone silent. Soldiers marched with heads low, breaths rattling, claws dragging against the ground. Their eyes, those proud, faceted orbs, flicked nervously toward the figures below, toward the humans. The humans had been silent from the beginning. At first, it was easy to mistake for weakness, for fear. But now that same silence pressed down on the commander's chest like a weight he could not shake. Not fear.
Not submission. It was something else. Every sound the humans made was stripped down to necessity. The scrape of bleeding feet, the rasp of air through ruined throats, the faint thud of heartbeats pounding against fragile ribs. They didn't taunt.
They didn't cry. They didn't waste words. They just moved, together, step by step. The commander's mandibles clicked nervously. He tried to speak, to rouse his soldiers, but the words curdled in his throat. What could he say? That the fragile prey was still here while predators collapsed? That the hunt had inverted? He remembered hunts from his youth, cornering an animal, pressing until the terror in its eyes bloomed into panic. That moment, that delicious breaking, was what every Kragth lived for. But these humans' eyes carried no terror.
Only fire. And worse, they did not run away. They moved forward. Always forward. The commander shifted uneasily. He looked at his second in command. Extend the course again. The lieutenant's antennae twitched. Commander? His voice rasped with fatigue. If we extend again, it will not be them who collapse, the commander hissed, but the truth of it clawed through him. His own soldiers' bodies trembled, their gills fluttered, their carapaces dulled with fatigue.
Already dozens had been carried off the field, and the humans, those frail bipeds, still moved. The commander forced himself to watch them closely, searching for weakness. He saw blood, he saw broken skin, he saw exhaustion painted into every
line of their bodies. But none of it stopped them. When one staggered, another steadied them.
When one collapsed, two others pulled them upright. When one faltered in darkness, they lit torches, carried fire through the night like something out of old myths. The silence of it unnerved him most. No pleas, no curses, only movement. It began to feel less like endurance and more like pursuit. Predators hunted in bursts. Prey ran in panic. But these creatures, these humans, they stalked with silence, patient, methodical, relentless. The commander's mandibles twitched. He hated the thought, but it gnawed at him all the same. What if we are the ones being hunted? Hours passed. The wasteland stretched endlessly. His soldiers drooped. Some slipped behind, clawed feet dragging. Others collapsed outright, their carapaces cracking as they hit the stone. Medics swarmed, hauling them away. The humans trudged past them all. The commander's stomach twisted. His soldiers, once proud, once mocking, now whispered in ragged voices. They don't stop. They should be dead. Why do they keep coming? The commander snarled to silence them, but even his own breath betrayed him, harsh and uneven. His muscles ached, his vision blurred. Still the humans moved. One of them, a tall, gaunt figure with blood dripping from his ruined feet, lifted his head. His eyes locked on the commander, even across the distance. The commander felt that gaze burn into him, empty of fear,
empty of mercy. Predators were not supposed to feel like prey, but that look made him feel hunted. The man lowered his head again and kept walking. The commander's chest throbbed. He forced himself upright, wings flexing in a show of strength he
didn't feel. His mandibles opened to bark orders, then closed again. Because what order could he give? Extend the trial? His soldiers were already breaking. End it? That would be admission of failure, and still the humans moved. The silence grew unbearable. It wasn't just absence of sound anymore. It was pressure. It was weight. It was the silence of something hunting you across endless ground. The commander wanted to believe it was delusion, fatigue, twisting his senses. But then another soldier collapsed, limbs twitching, mandibles foaming with dehydration, and the humans trudged past, torches flickering. Still there, always there. The commander rasped, voice thin. They cannot do this forever. Flesh has limits. But he no longer believed it, and neither did his soldiers. The silence pressed harder until the only sound was the steady scrape of human feet on stone. That rhythm beat into the commander's skull like a war drum, echoing his own faltering heartbeat. Step, step, step. Always forward, never stopping. The commander felt his breath catch, his chest heaved, his limbs trembled, and then it struck him. Horrible, unshakable. This was not silence at all. This was the sound of pursuit. A human glances back at the alien commander, eyes hollow but unbroken, and in that silent look, the commander feels hunted for the first time in his life. The commander could not allow this humiliation to continue. Already whispers spread through his soldiers like rot. That prey had become predator, that the trial had inverted. If word escaped beyond the wastes, it would poison the Kraxth name across the sector. So he called in the elites. They arrived at dawn, towering figures armored in ceremonial plating, their limbs thick with muscle, their gills flaring proudly. Veterans of countless hunts, champions who had broken worlds with their endurance. When the commander saw them crest the ridge, he felt a flicker of relief. The scales would be reset. The fragile humans would finally be revealed as the brittle
meat they were. The elites descended with mocking laughter.
Their voices cut the silence like blades. "Is this the prey that refuses to die?" one sneered. "They limp like wounded animals. Watch them crumble when true hunters join the march." The commander clung to their bravado like a drowning man to driftwood. Yes, this was the way. The elites would crush this illusion, and so they joined the trial. The humans barely looked up. Their eyes flicked toward the newcomers, gleaming, powerful, rested, and then dropped back to the ground. Step by step, they moved on. The commander leaned forward, waiting for collapse. Surely now, surely with fresh predators pushing the pace, the brittle creatures would shatter. Hours passed. The elites mocked. They jeered. They surged ahead, forcing the pace higher, their armored feet striking sparks against the stone. The humans bled more. Their steps grew heavier. Their bodies looked carved from agony, but none fell. They adjusted, shifted weight, steadied one another. One stumbled, another caught them. Blood dripped, but feet kept moving, always forward, always together. By the 12th hour of the elite's march, the commander's unease returned, because it was not the humans who faltered. It was the elites. Their laughter quieted. Their mandibles clicked with strain. The shimmer of arrogance dulled as their steps grew labored. Their breath came ragged. The humans still looked like ruin, but they did not stop. One elite's pace faltered. His steps dragged. He snarled and forced himself upright, but the weakness was plain. The commander's mandibles twitched. No, not yet. Not here. But soon another elite stumbled, then another. Their proud voices dwindled to silence. By the 20th hour, the wasteland
rang with only one rhythm, the scrape of human feet. The commander's claws clenched.
His heart hammered. How? How could flesh so thin endure when the strongest of hunters began to collapse? The first elite broke with a scream. His knees buckled, his claws scrabbling against stone. He crashed to the ground, carapace splitting, mandibles frothing. Medics rushed to drag him away. The humans trudged past without a glance. The commander felt his insides twist. A champion of the crack, shamed, broken, and the prey still moved. Then the second fell, and the third by the 30th.
Hour, half the elites were gone.
Their massive frames lay scattered across the wasteland, carried off like broken husks. The humans were still there, still bleeding, still burning, still moving. The silence grew unbearable. It was not emptiness anymore, it was domination. Every scrape of human feet on stone sounded louder than a battle cry. Step, step, step. The commander pressed a claw to his chest, trying to steady his breath. His soldiers' eyes were wide, their antennae drooping with fear. They looked less like hunters,
now and more like cornered prey. One soldier whispered, "This is wrong." Another rasped, "They are not prey."
The commander hissed for silence, but the words coiled in his gut like venom. Not prey. The last of the elites fought to stay upright. Their bodies trembled, their gills fluttering weakly, but pride kept them staggering forward. The commander saw. Their eyes, once sharp, now clouded with doubt. And still the humans walked. One of them, a woman with a torn leg, every step leaving a red print on the stone, lifted her head. She looked directly at the staggering elites. Her face was pale, hollow, drenched in sweat. But her eyes were fire. The commander flinched from that gaze. The woman looked away, leaned on her companion, and kept moving. Step, step, step. The final elite broke at the 35th hour. His legs buckled. He collapsed to his knees, mandibles frothing, eyes rolling back. With a ragged scream, he pitched forward into the dust. Silence followed. Only the humans remained. The commander's chest ached. His mandibles clicked weakly. He wanted to deny it, to scream that this was impossible, but the truth was burned into the wasteland for all to see. The strongest of predators had collapsed, and the weakest flesh still endured. The commander staggered back, visions swimming. His soldiers looked to him for answers, but he had none. The silence pressed heavier, suffocating, until he could no longer tell if the pounding in his ears was his own heart or the human's endless march. He rasped a whisper, broken and hollow. "If they do not stop, they will run us into the ground." The alien elites, pride of their species, lie broken in the dust while the humans march past. The commander realizes this trial is no longer about humiliation. It is survival. The wasteland blurred into eternity. Stone, dust, horizon. Day bled into night. Night bled into day. There was no rhythm anymore except the scrape of human feet on the ground. Step, step, step. That sound haunted the commander's skull. He heard it when he tried to breathe, when his heart hammered, when silence fell between his soldiers. Always the rhythm, always the pursuit, because that's what it had become. A pursuit, the commander had told himself in the beginning, that this was a trial, that it was theatre, a humiliation of fragile prey. But that illusion had been shattered with the fall of the elites. Now he saw the truth laid bare, hideous in its simplicity. The humans were chasing them, not with speed,
Not with claws, but with something worse: time. Every hour another crack faltered. They staggered, they fell. Their carapaces cracked as they hit the earth. Medics dragged them away, silent and grim. The humans never stopped. The commander forced
himself to keep moving, but his body betrayed him. His gills rasped, his legs trembled, his wings ached with every twitch, and the humans followed, always behind, always closing. He glanced back once at dusk. The sun burned red on the horizon, casting long shadows across the rocks. The humans' torches flickered like hunting fires, their silhouettes stretched impossibly tall against the dying light. They looked less like men and women now and more like something older, something elemental, predators made of bone and blood and silence. The commander tore his gaze away, chest heaving. He told himself it was an illusion, fatigue twisting his senses, but deep down he knew it wasn't. The humans had become myth before his very eyes. His soldiers muttered among themselves, voices sharp with fear. They don't sleep. They don't fall. They're not natural. The commander barked for silence, but even his voice was weak. And in that weakness he heard something worse than fear. He heard belief. Belief that the humans were no longer prey. The thought gnawed at him, hour by hour, until it became unbearable. He tried to focus on the wasteland, on the endless march, but always his eyes were drawn back to the humans. He watched them stumble, watched them bleed, watched them drag each other upright again and again, and he realized they are not stronger than us. They are not faster. They are simply unwilling to fall. That thought chilled him more than any claw or fang ever had. By the 100th hour, his soldiers looked hollow. Their antennae drooped, their gills fluttered with ragged breath. Some shuffled on instinct alone. The commander saw the cracks spreading through his army, and with them, the cracks in himself. He tried to summon pride, to remind himself of hunts where he had run creatures to ground, torn them screaming from the dust, but every memory twisted back, into the present, into the endless scrape of human feet behind him. Step, step, step. One soldier finally broke. He collapsed with a strangled cry, limbs splaying, mandibles clicking in panic. The commander spun on him, bellowing, "Rise!" But the soldier only wheezed, eyes wide with terror. "They're still coming," he rasped before his body gave.
Out. The commander froze, because the soldier's words weren't a metaphor. Even as medics dragged the body away, the humans trudged closer.
Their shadows lengthened across the stone, crawling over the fallen cracks like dark fingers. They didn't need to strike. They didn't need to kill. Their pursuit was the weapon. Another soldier broke hours later. Then another. The commander watched the collapse spread like infection. His army, once proud hunters, now looked over their shoulders with every step. And still the humans came. The commander's mandibles trembled. He wanted to scream, to deny, to tear the illusion apart with words. But every time he opened his mouth, the scrape of human feet drowned him out. Step, 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 always closer. By the 110th hour, the commander felt something he had never felt before. He felt hunted. The wasteland stretched endless ahead, but it no longer mattered. There was no escape. No ridge high enough, no distance far enough. The humans would follow. Through blood, through night,
through eternity if they had to. The commander staggered, clutching his chest. His visions swam. His soldiers' whispers grew louder, frantic. They're still coming. They don't stop. They'll chase us forever. The commander wanted to silence them, but the words stuck in his throat.
Because he knew they were true. The humans did not need to kill them. They only needed to keep walking, and that was worse than death. As night fell again, the commander looked back one final time. The torches burned, the shadows stretched, and in the flicker of firelight, he swore he saw their eyes glowing in the dark, burning with the promise of a pursuit that would never end. The cracked commander finally accepts the nightmare truth. The humans are not enduring to survive. They are enduring to hunt, and the pursuit will not stop until the cracks break completely. The commander had once believed fear was a weapon that belonged only to predators. Prey ran because they feared teeth and claws. Hunters fed on that fear, drove it deeper, and tasted victory when panic broke their quarry apart. But now he understood the truth his ancestors had hidden from him. Fear did not belong to the prey. Fear belonged to whoever realized they could not win. And now it was his soldiers who carried it like a disease. The march dragged past the 120th hour. The wasteland devoured the weak, leaving
only the broken and the desperate. Every few miles another soldier collapsed, his mandibles frothing, his eyes wild with exhaustion.
Medics dragged them away in silence. The rest kept glancing back, always back, toward the humans. Step, step, step. That sound filled the commander's skull like a war drum. He tried to ignore it, to focus on the horizon, but his eyes betrayed him. Every time he looked over his shoulder, he saw the torches still burning. He saw the silhouettes still moving. The humans were closer now. Not much, never much, but enough. Close enough that his soldiers could see their faces, pale and hollow but unbroken. Close enough that the rhythm of their march carried on the wind. Close enough that silence itself felt hunted. The commander's soldiers began to whisper. At first it was nervous muttering, then frantic voices in the night. End it! Call it off! They're not prey! The commander snapped his mandibles, snarling, "Silence!" But the voices did not stop. One soldier stumbled to his knees, claws trembling. He raised his eyes to the commander, antennae drooping. "Please," he rasped, "end this, before they—"
"End us," the commander recoiled as though struck. No crack begged, not ever.
To beg was to admit defeat. to lay one's throat bare. And yet here it was, a predator begging. The commander's chest heaved. He wanted to roar, to strike the soldier down, to remind his army of who they were. But even as the thought formed,
another soldier collapsed beside the first. His voice was cracked, desperate. "They will not stop. Can't you see it? They'll follow us until we die." The commander's antennae quivered. He looked toward the humans. Their torches flickered.
Carried high in the night, their faces glistened with sweat and blood, their bodies trembled with pain. But their march did not falter. The silence was unbearable now, not absence, not patience. It was pressure pressing into his chest until he could hardly breathe. Step, step, step. The sound grew louder with each passing mile, until it seemed the humans were no longer behind them, but inside them, chasing from within. The commander hissed, "We are predators. We do not yield to prey." But the words rang hollow, even to his own ears. Another soldier collapsed, clawing at the ground as though trying to burrow into the stone. His mandibles snapped open in a scream that cracked through the night. "They're hunting us!" The cry spread panic like fire. Soldiers staggered, antennae whipping wildly, eyes wide with terror. The commander barked for order, but his voice was drowned in a chorus of rasping breaths and frantic whispers. "They're not stopping!
They're not prey. They'll run us all into the dust." The commander's mandibles quivered. He tried to raise his wings, to make himself loom above them, but his body betrayed him. His limbs shook. His breath rattled. His eyes burned
with fatigue. And all the while the humans came closer. Step, step, step. One soldier broke entirely. He threw his weapon aside, screaming, and fled into the dark. The commander spun, shrieking, "Coward!" But in his chest, the accusation felt like a lie, because part of him understood, part of him wanted to run too. He looked at the humans again. Their torches glowed brighter against the night, their faces carved from pain and silence. They looked like death itself marching forward. Another soldier dropped to his knees, mandibles clicking in a prayer older than memory.
"Spare us," he whispered, not to the commander, but to the humans behind him. The commander froze. His blood went cold, praying to pray. It was worse than shame. It was collapse. His army, hunters who had broken countless worlds, were no longer predators. They were quarry, begging the silence not to devour them. The commander felt his chest cave with the weight of it. He staggered back, vision swimming, and in the distance a human lifted his head. Blood streaked his face, his
eyes hollow and black. He looked straight at the commander, through the night, across the wasteland. That gaze froze the commander's heart. It was not triumph, not arrogance, it was inevitability. The man lowered his head again and kept walking. Step, step, step. The commander's mandibles clicked weakly. His soldiers begged, prayed, collapsed around him. The silence pressed tighter, crushing him until he could no longer deny the truth. They were no longer predators. They were being hunted, and there was no escape. The commander watches as his soldiers collapse into prayer and panic, begging the humans for mercy. In that moment he realizes the Kragth have lost the hunt, not through defeat in battle, but through becoming prey themselves. The commander had lost count of the hours. Time itself seemed to have rotted away, replaced by nothing but the endless scrape of feet across stone. Step, step, step. That rhythm no longer belonged to the Kragth. Their ranks had withered to a fraction of their former strength, scattered remnants of an army that had once filled valleys with thunder. Now they staggered, like the hunted, strung out in the dark. The night was heavy, colder than any he remembered. Stars burned cruelly above, indifferent to what was happening on the wasteland below. Torches sputtered in the hands of the humans, their flames dragging lines of fire through the black. And the humans kept coming. Their faces looked carved from shadow, hollow and stark in the firelight. Their eyes glowed like embers in the night. Their silence pressed thicker than ever, until it seemed the whole world held its breath to hear their march. Step, step, step. The commander's chest ached with each inhale. His legs shook, his wings dragged like dead weight. He staggered forward, but every step felt stolen from death. Around him, his soldiers had crumbled into husks. Their antennae drooped, their mandibles clicked in broken rhythms. Some whispered prayers, others muttered curses, but none carried the proud jeers of hunters anymore. And still, they looked back, always back. The torches grew brighter in their eyes with every mile. The humans were gaining. The commander felt panic gnawing at him, raw and animal. He tried to summon pride, but pride had abandoned them hours ago. All that remained was fear. Thick, choking, undeniable, a soldier beside him broke into a run, shrieking. His claws clattered against stone as he fled into the night. The commander watched, horror rising in his chest, because the soldier didn't get far. The humans didn't chase. Him didn't even look. They just kept moving forward step by step. And somehow, that was worse. The soldiers' screams dwindled in the dark until nothing was left but silence and the steady march. Step, step, step. The commander staggered, antennae twitching with terror. He felt eyes on him, dozens of them, though the humans never lifted their heads. It was in the rhythm, the inevitability, the unrelenting patience. This wasn't a march anymore, this was a hunt. The night closed in tighter, shadows pressing on all sides. The wasteland seemed to narrow until there was no horizon, no escape. Only the humans behind them, filling the dark with their fire and their silence. One soldier fell, clawing at the ground as if trying to dig himself into the stone. He whispered,
"They're coming," before collapsing face first into dust. Another dropped to his knees, rocking back and forth, mandibles frothing. He muttered nonsense, eyes glazed. The commander couldn't save them. He couldn't save anyone. All he could
do was keep moving. The silence shredded him. It wasn't absence anymore. It was presence. Heavy, suffocating, alive. The scrape of feet filled the night like jaws closing around them. Step, step, step. Each one a heartbeat. Each one a reminder. Each one a promise. The commander's own breath
rasped in time with it. His heart thudded against his ribs like a trapped animal. His vision swam with exhaustion, and then he heard it. Not words.
Not taunts, just a sound, a low, guttural exhale from one of the humans. Not pain, not weakness, something else, something primal. The commander's mandibles froze. His blood turned cold. It sounded like a predator savoring the kill. His soldiers must have heard it too, because panic tore through them like fire. They stumbled, clawed at each other, screamed in broken voices. The night filled with the chaos of prey trying to scatter, but there was nowhere to scatter to. The humans didn't quicken their pace, didn't lunge, didn't sprint. They didn't need to. Their silence was the net, their patience the blade. Step, step, step. The commander wanted to run. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to flee, to throw himself into the dark and pray. He could outrun the fire, but he couldn't. His body was ash, his limbs trembling. All he could do was stumble forward, dragging one broken step after another. And behind him, the humans came on. Closer. Always closer. He risked a glance back and wished he hadn't. The torches burned brighter now, reflecting off eyes hollow. With pain and fury, their faces looked less like flesh and more like skulls, carved by shadow and fire. And in that moment, he understood the hunt was over. Not because the humans had caught them, but because the Kracht were already caught. The commander's breath hitched. His mandibles trembled, and as the night pressed down around him, he felt the truth carve itself into his bones. The predators were gone, only prey remained. The humans are now so close their torches illuminate the broken Kracht survivors. The commander
realizes the hunt is already finished, their prey being driven step by step into the ground. The commander could not feel his legs anymore.
They were wood, stone, nothing. His claws scraped against the earth as though he were dragging another body, his own. His breath rattled in his throat, shallow, useless. Around him, the world had gone silent. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of aftermath. His soldiers had fallen one by one, their corpses scattered across the trail like discarded husks. The wasteland had claimed them, but it wasn't the desert that had killed them. It was the march. It was the humans. The firelight grew brighter. He didn't have to look back to know. He felt them, the way prey feels the teeth at its neck. Step after step, the rhythm closed around him. Step, step, step. The commander's antennae drooped low. He knew what came next. He had seen the cycle too many times on other worlds. Prey cornered, broken, consumed. The difference now was terrible and clear. His people, the hunters of 1,000 worlds, were the prey. He stumbled. His knees hit
stone. Dust scraped into his mandibles. For a moment he thought of rising again, of crawling, of clawing forward just one more step. But there was no step left in him.
The fire reached him. Shadows stretched long across his broken body, and then they were there. Humans. Close enough that he could see the cracks in their lips, the hollow hunger carved into their faces, the blood on their skin that wasn't all theirs. Their eyes burned out of sockets darkened by exhaustion. They looked like the dead, but they stood, they marched, they endured. The commander shuddered. He tried to speak, but his mandibles scraped out only a whisper. Why? A man, lean, ragged, his eyes like pits of iron, stopped in front of him. He tilted his head, studying the Kracht with a gaze that cut deeper than any blade. For a long moment there was nothing. No taunt, no triumph. Just silence. Then finally, the man spoke, because we don't stop. The words hit harder than any strike. The commander felt them pierce bone, marrow, spirit. He had no answer, no defiance left. His body collapsed to the earth, mandibles slack. Behind him, the last of the Kracht staggered and fell. They didn't
even scream anymore. They just lay down in the dust and didn't rise again.
The firelight moved over them like judgment. The humans did not cheer. They did not roar their victory. They simply kept walking, stepping over the husks of the hunters who had mocked them. The wasteland swallowed the sound of their march as it stretched on into the night. Step, step, step. Unbroken, unrelenting, unstoppable. The commander's vision blurred. He saw them fading into the dark, still moving, still carrying that impossible rhythm forward. In his last flicker of thought, the truth etched itself into his mind. The Kragth had not been defeated in battle. They had been outlasted. Every weapon, every claw, every advantage of strength and speed, all undone by creatures who refused to fall, by fragile bodies that burned and bled but kept moving anyway. Predators had mocked their weakness and been run into the ground. The commander's eyes dimmed. His mandibles twitched once, then stilled forever. The march went on without him. Above, stars burned cold and indifferent. But on the barren world below, something new had been written into the dark. A truth older than weapons, older than empires. Hunters could break, prey could endure, and those who endured survived. In the days that followed, other fleets searched the wasteland. They found the bones of the Kragth scattered like dust, their bodies broken where they fell. And in the silence between those ruins they whispered stories of what had happened. They whispered of humans, of the fire that walked in the night, of the silence that killed more surely than blades, of the march that never ended, and across the stars the legend spread. Humanity, fragile, soft, mortal humanity, had revealed itself. Not as hunters, not as prey, but as something far more dangerous, as the ones who did not stop. The story closes with silence and inevitability. The Kragth lie broken, the humans keep marching, and the myth of their endurance begins to spread across the galaxy, leaving the sense that this was only the first of many reckonings.